Okay, I'm going to continue on using the data from problem number 92 in your book. It's on page 70. We're going to use the data to help us make a box plot. We'll also take a look at a histogram as well. So if you remember from what we did before, I have the data, we sorted it out, so it's in numerical order. We already looked at our 5-number summary. We would have an idea, and we can definitely make it by hand. But so you can get those quick looks in your calculator with the data to make your graphs. It's going to be a lot like you did before in your algebra classes where you're going to y equals. But if you look just above that, notice it says stat plot, so that's where we're going to make all of our statistics plots. So if you press second y equals, that takes us to our stat plots. If you hit enter on number 1, we're going to make sure we turn our plot on, and then you're going to arrow down. The type of plot that we want is going to be a box plot. You're always going to want to use this first box plot, and that's because that little dot that you see out here on the end, that little dot right there is going to mark our outliers for us. All the box plots that we want to make always want to have the outliers marked for us. We're doing this using L1 because that's the list that we put it in. Frequency you can just leave as 1. Again, if you have a frequency list, that's the only time that that would change. Now, to have the calculator make the graph for you, you're going to press zoom, and then you always want to zoom to stat, so that's zoom 9. And it's going to create our graph for us. Now, for you to figure out how to take this from what you have on the screen and put it onto your sheet of paper, if that's what you're needing to do is graphing it on your paper, you can press trace, and that's going to help you through each point. So I would go out and start with my smallest value, which was our minimum of 43, is an outlier. Notice that's being marked with a point. Then next point is 45, also marked with a point. See how you can see the number line on here? You have to have a scale drawn on your paper. So make sure that your paper also has a number line as well. So you would have your number line, you have a point at 43, a point at 45, and then your whisker is going to go out to 72. That's your smallest value that is not an outlier. Then over to 82 for your first quartile, 87.75 for our median. Remember, we had 30 data values in our set. So our median is following between 15th and 16th, our 15th and 16th value. So you took the average of those two values to get your 87.75, our Q3, and our max value. So again, on your paper, your graph will look very similar to this, where we have our scale, which is also serving as our axes for this graph. We have our points drawn and our box and whisker plot, and you should include a title for that graph as well, and preferably a label. So whatever it is we're looking at, this was a statistics test, so maybe you just put score here, and on top it's acing the first test could be your title. Okay, always make sure your graph talks. And while we're here, just one quick thing I wanted to show you as well, second stat plot. If I change this to arrow down, go over my histogram instead, and now I zoom 9 on that histogram. Notice it only took a couple of seconds to be able to switch from one graph to the next, and I'm being able to see two different. If I threw out these two outliers, that graph is pretty well symmetric without them. And I can take a look at this and then compare it over to my box and whisker plots. One thing to know with your histogram should always have somewhere between 5 to 8 bars. Now this one's kind of deceiving. I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bars total. It's just 2 of those bins are being left empty because there's no values there. If you ever need to change it, you can go to Window and change what you have this set at. You can change whatever, you can change your max, you can change your min, and you can change your scale. If you want to go by tens instead, because it's easier for you to be able to copy down on your paper, you could do that. If they're ever giving you too many bars, because sometimes they'll give you like 15 bars, you just go here to change your scale, and that'll make the bars wider so you have fewer of them.